Hello, World of Warcraft! This is Sinon with the WoW Dungeon, and in this video I'm going to be continuing my kiting series, how to kite melee, and in this feature we're going to be looking at warriors. Warriors are probably one of the easiest classes to kite, if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to die. So that's what this is for you to learn what a warrior can do and what you can do about it. So let's start. Charge. Alright, charge is pretty much like the most iconic warrior ability. It pretty much lunges the warrior at you. He'll make this like sound. And there are 3 different types of talents that affect charge. So, charge has Juggernaut, which allows the cooldown to be reduced by 8 seconds, giving it a 12-second cooldown instead of 20. There's Warbringer, making the charge turn from a root, it's like a 1-second root or something like that, to a 1.5-second stun, so that way you cannot post haste out of the charge. And then there is double time, and what double time does is allows the warrior to have 2 charges of charge, but each charge has 20-second cooldown. So theoretically, the warrior will have 40 seconds of no double time charge. The most common one is Juggernaut. That'll be the pretty much bread and butter for every single warrior. I would say Double Time might come behind it, or Warbringer, but typically just anticipate that each warrior is using Juggernaut, so they have a 12-second cooldown on charge. So along with charge, the only other gap closer that a warrior has is Heroic Leap. And what Heroic Leaps is on a 45-second cooldown, and they leap through the air toward a target location, slamming down with destructive force. And they deal, a minor amount of damage. One thing to note, if a warrior uses his Heroic Leap, know that you're not going to see one for a while, so it's a perfect time to act. That he probably is using it as filler in between his charge cooldown. So if he Heroic Leaps to you, just remember that you're pretty much almost guaranteed to keep him off you for the rest of the fight. When it comes to CC, a warrior has 3 types of main CC. They can choose between either 1 of 2 stuns called Stormbolt and Shockwave. Shockwave is a cone. It sends a wave of force in a frontal cone, causing a moderate amount of damage, and it's within 10 yards, and for 4 seconds they are stunned. It's on a 40-second cooldown, so if you're dueling a warrior, he's probably not going to be using Shockwave. However, if it's in a group and he Shockwaves three targets, the cooldown for Shockwave is reduced by 20 seconds. So keep that in mind. If he uses Shockwave, there's going to be 40 seconds, 20 seconds if he hit 3 targets. The other stun that they have is Stormbolt, and they have to choose between Stormbolt and Shockwave on their Tier 4 talent. And what Stormbolt is on a 30-second cooldown, and it hurls a weapon at the enemy and stuns them for 4 seconds. And it says it also deals quadruple damage to targets permanently immune to stuns, but that's probably not that important for us. The other CC that they have is called Intimidating Shout, and Intimidating Shout is a 1.5-minute cooldown, and it pretty much in a radius causes people to flee in fear from the warrior. One thing to note is that if a warrior pounces on you and Intimidating Shouts, don't trinket it. Make sure to save the trinket for the stun. If you trinket the Intimidating Shout, he will literally just Stormbolt you and wreck the crap out of you. So be very wary of Intimidating Shout. Think of it as a way for the warrior to start gaining some uptime on you, rather than as a way to finish you off. One final piece of utility that warriors have is Spell Reflection. This is actually a really cool ability and provides warriors with a really awesome way of counterplay against a hunter. However, it's not super strong in the broad scheme of things when versing hunters for warriors, but you have to be aware of it, because if a warrior uses Spell Reflection, he can Spell Reflect your Ice Trap. So if you throw down an Ice Trap and you expect him to walk over it, and he sees it, and he intends to walk over it, he'll just Spell Reflect it, he'll hit it, and it'll freeze you instead. So be very aware of seeing whether or not they cast Spell Reflection. The major cooldown of a warrior is called Recklessness. What Recklessness does is it a 3-minute cooldown and grants their special attacks an additional 15% chance to critically strike and increases critical strike damage by 10% and lasts 10 seconds. When a warrior pops Recklessness, he's about to deal a lot of damage. Try to avoid that damage in any way possible. Similar to rogues, like a rogue popping Shadow Dance, make sure to CC him or ensure that he's not going to stay on top of you while Recklessness is active. If he does pop Recklessness and you're caught in a stun, he will probably kill you. So when Recklessness gets popped, warriors go into Enrage. What Enrage does is it's a passive, and it increases all of warrior damage by 10%. Now, Enrage can be triggered by a couple different things, but for a warrior, you can dispel an Enrage. I was talking to this warrior who was very high rated, and he said that it probably isn't that significant to Trank Shot Enrage. You can Trank Shot it, and what Trank Shot will do is they'll dispel one magic and one Enrage effect. So if you are Trank Shotting a warrior, it's probably a good time to do it because you get pretty much two things in one when he enrages and you can dispel something. But just be aware of when they are enraging because they are dealing 10% extra damage. The only other cooldown that I would even bother mentioning is Colossal Smash. And while not hugely important, for 20, it's on a 20-second cooldown, and it will bypass some armor for 6 seconds, so they can maybe deal a little bit extra damage to you. So just be aware of those abilities. So on top of Recklessness, warriors have about 3 different types of cooldowns as well. Offensive cooldowns that they can also use. There are 2 that they have to choose between on their 6 tier 6 talent tree. And they have to choose between Avatar and Bladestorm. Everybody knows what Bladestorm is. It's just that whirling movement that they all do. And what Bladestorm is, it's on a 1-minute cooldown, and it pretty much makes them an unstoppable force. What it will do is prevent them from being CC'd or any movement impairing effects. Pretty much they are immune to everything while simultaneously doing damage. They don't move very fast, but they can cause a lot of damage if you're stuck on them with Bladestorm, and they can also get out of roots, snares, and eat CC if you use CC during a Bladestorm. Bladestorm is unstoppable. Definitely try to avoid a Bladestorm and deterrence it if you have to, if you're really stuck on it. You cannot explosive trap him away. You cannot do anything to prevent Bladestorm. So try to get them to use it as a utility to get out of your roots rather than as damage because you're stuck in like a CC, like a stun or a Stormbolt or a Shockwave. If they don't take Bladestorm, they're going to be taking Avatar. And what Avatar does is transforms them into a Colossus for 24 seconds. It's on a 3-minute cooldown, and it'll just pretty much make them increase damage by 20%. It also removes roots and snares, so if they're right next to you and they pop Avatar, they're going to remove the roots and snares and just start mashing on you. Avatar is pretty scary damage, and when coupled with Recklessness, it can deal a lot of damage. So be aware of those two. The other cooldown is Ravager. And warriors don't always take this, but when they do, just be aware of if you see a flying sword or hammer or axe, if you see one just floating around, don't run into it. What Ravager does is throws a whirling axe at the target location that inflicts 2.5k damage to enemies within 6 yards every 1 second. So definitely avoid a Ravager if you see one happening. So that's the entire video. I'm hoping that this was very informative for you and that you can learn something from this, especially when you're fighting warriors, and so that way you can deal with them a lot easier. The next part of this kind of mini-series for warriors, I'm going to be showing step-by-step instructions on how to duel a warrior, giving specific details as to what to do, when, and why. So be aware for that. Again, as always feel free to provide me comments, questions, or if there's something that I didn't cover and you want me to talk about that, let me know. I can respond in my YouTube comments below. Other than that, have a good day, and I'll see you next time. The warrior probably couldn't really do much else in this situation, but he played it as best as he could. It's just very difficult.